Y'all can see the title of the video. We are talking CONCACAF transfers yet again, but this video is going to be focusing exclusively on Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Maybe I'll upload these as separate videos as well, just for the clout, but I don't know. It depends how lazy I feel. I do have plans to make a tier list video ranking which teams in CONCACAF had the best windows when the transfer window actually closes, so if you don't want to miss that, hit subscribe. And if you're new here and you have no idea who I am, that means you missed all of my Gold Cup coverage, which kind of hurts my feelings. But I love CONCACAF and I drop videos covering the region all the time, and there will probably be 50 hours of content just about this region leading up to the 2026 World Cup. Without further ado, you guys make sure you smash the like button and let me know down below in the comments of the big three teams in CONCACAF, what is the #1 transfer that has happened so far and why? And I think there's a couple nominees for that, so I'm curious what you guys think. I would like to start with Jonathan David, Mr. Canada, finally getting that big move that we have talked about since, I don't know, I was 8 years old is what it feels like, to Juventus on a free. Now, as of time of recording, Dusan Vlahovic is still on the roster, but I'm very curious to see what happens with that, because you have half of the aisle who say that now Jonathan David showing up has signaled that Vlahovic's time at Juventus is basically done. But then there are the reports that Vlahovic doesn't want to leave, that he doesn't want to be sold, and he's just going to run down his contract. It hasn't really worked out with Vlahovic at Juventus. I don't watch a ton of Juve games. The stats aren't incredible. I know fans are extremely disappointed given what the expectation was for him, which is partially because he was cooking at Fiorentina before then, but also because the transfer fee was huge. Well, guess who doesn't have a huge transfer fee? Jonathan David. And I think there's a way to look at this where the fact that his saga lasted longer than the Star Wars franchise might actually offer him a little bit of protection. Because if he was signed for $75 million, oh, you better perform immediately. There's not going to be any, well, let's give him time to acclimate. Like, no, Juventus fans will expect you to be top 3 goal scorers in the league Season 1. For me, I see Juventus as a huge golden opportunity for Jonathan David. I think he's going to be tested. I think it's an amazing opportunity. Am I thrilled that it's Juventus? I don't really care, honestly, but if you look at where the other strikers have gone in the market, Jonathan David, for his skill level, going to a Serie A giant makes sense to me. Serie A is a phenomenal league, and I think Jonathan David's going to struggle. I mean, look at Santi Jimenez, who many would have considered last year to be Jonathan David's main competition at the striker level. He's going to start for Real Madrid soon. Well, yeah, he was a backup at AC Milan. This is going to be tough, but I love Jonathan David as a player. I do think he's underrated, given how the other fan bases speak about him. Juventus have made some other nice signings. They got a nice roster here, new manager coming in. I think it's great. Another Canadian making a move is Tjan Buchanan, making his loan to Villarreal permanent for $9 million. And the first thing that I saw is, holy hell, Villarreal got fleeced. $9 million for Tjan Buchanan is a crazy expensive signing. Like, I like Tjan. He's probably worth $4 million. I mean, this is an insane fee. I guess that Villarreal love the flair and they love the work rate, because this fee doesn't make sense. For Villarreal and for La Liga clubs in particular, $9 million is like, that's a big signing. So this is a huge declaration of faith in Tjan, who didn't do anything for Villarreal last season. I have a show on the channel, Lengua de la Liga. I watch La Liga every single week. I promise I watch it more than you. He did nothing. So this is a kind of a question mark, stunning transfer. I think it's great for Tjan, and I think it's great for CONCACAF to actually have some freaking representation in Spain. But I was surprised. I'm really curious where Tjan fits in the depth chart at Villarreal, because Nicola Pepe extended his contract, and Nicola Pepe is better than Tjan Buchanan, had a much better season than Tjan Buchanan. Akomach will be returning from an ACL at some point, so this is going to be interesting. No Alex Baena. Maybe there's an opportunity to play on the left side. I think for the money paid, Tjan needs 10 GA in the league this season, which I don't think is impossible. I just don't know how many minutes he's going to get. I think it's great from a competition level. I think it's hype that he's staying at a champion league club. Like, that is a win in itself, but it is risky. It is a lot of money. I still like it though. Another Canadian move, and this one is just total fire. Nathan Saliba from Montreal to Anderlecht for $2 million. Come on, man. Now, why do Canadians get moves like this? I think it's because of high potential, good passports, good agents, and modest transfer fees. Nathan Saliba, he's not like Mr. Next Up for Canada, but Canadians are expecting him to be a key figure in the midfield. Not in 2026, that's too soon, but probably 2030 when he'll be 26 years old. If this guy was Mexican and playing in Liga MX, this is a $10 million fee. And then people get stunned that Mexicans get stuck. Well, that's exactly why. And he's going to Anderlecht. And like, I'm going to say for the 100th time on the channel, the Jupiler Pro League, I think, should be the #1 destination for CONCACAF players. years. Everybody always talks about the Eredivisie. The Eredivisie is great, but the Jupiler Pro League, in terms of development, is just as good. And it is a competitive league. A lot of the teams that are going to be buying CONCACAF talent are going to be playing the Conference League, Europa League, whatever. It's a great destination. I was checking the stats, and he's already featured for Anderlecht as a sub. He actually scored in his debut in the Jupiler Pro League off the bench against Westerlo. Anderlecht are going to be playing in Europa Conference League qualifiers too, so if they make that competition, that's what? Minimum 10 extra games per season, more potential minutes for Saliba. He's probably not going to start a lot this season, but guess what? That's okay. He's 22 years old. It's his first season in Europe. He's just now breaking into the Canadian senior team. Just let him chill. Put the oven on 300, throw him in there, and just forget about it. Let him bake. I think it's a great transfer. 10 out of 10. Last move for Canada that I want to talk about here that I think is interesting is Ismael Kone to Sassuolo in Serie A on a loan. Look, the incident, I'm going to refer to it, with Roberto De Zerbi has gone viral on social media. Everybody saw him getting basically cussed out for taking too many touches on the ball. I thought it was way over the top from De Zerbi. I don't know if you can excuse that type of behavior. I thought he looked very childish. I'm not saying that Ismael Kone is faultless in this situation because we don't know what had been happening in training up to that point, but regardless, that explains exactly why he left Marseille. Because if you remember, even in my own video last year when Kone signed for Marseille from Watford, I was like, yo, this is an incredible move. He's going to be under De Zerbi. Marseille should be pushing for at least trophies in France. I don't know if they'll win any because PSG are that good, but at least they'll probably make a cup final, some semifinals. They should be in European football. This is a good move. I say all that to say, going to Sassuolo now, as long as he plays, it's a good move. Serie A is a better league than France as well, so the competition is going to be higher. I think it's sick. And honestly, Serie A, if we're talking about getting CONCACAF fans to give a shite about the league, they're doing such a good job. They signed Canadians. They got Mexican players there. They have American stars. They are doing this, at least the marketing and kind of selling the league to a new audience. They're doing it flawlessly. I don't know a ton about Sassuolo. I'm not going to give you guys a fake prediction or like assessment of the depth chart. My only concern for Kone is playing leading up to the 2026 World Cup. I rate his talent. I rate him as a player, so he should be getting at least some minutes. We'll see how it goes. Now let's talk about some Mexican transfers. Efrain Alvarez moved from Tijuana to Chivas for $6.5 million. That's a pretty sizable fee for a guy who's had, I don't know, a good season and a half. Look, now he's at Chivas. I'll be honest, I don't feel great about it. Why? Because Chivas don't sell to Europe. Now, Efrain is not really important in the selección. He's like barely mentioned ever. But if he was going to break into the team, it was probably going to be by leaving Liga MX and going abroad. Now he's gone to Chivas, and we've just seen that Chivas tends to hold on to people, so I don't really like it. I don't like when Chivas buy young Mexican players with potential because they tend to get stuck. So for me, this is a lateral move. There's nothing to see here. If he balls out at Chivas, then I think we just get another Alexis Vega situation where he just stays there, and maybe he gets 10 goals, 5 assists a season. Maybe he can win something with Chivas. I don't know. I feel like the window to Europe just shut pretty significantly here. That's a ton of money, man. Like, who else is paying $7 million for Efrain? No European club is paying $7 million for that. That's a crazy fee. Okay, next player here, and this is the only one that's not official. This is the only rumor I'm talking about because I just think it is that important. Marcel Ruiz to Palmeiras. This is a massive W, and if we're going to celebrate moves like Luis Chavez going to Russia or Cesar Montes going to Russia, then you must celebrate Marcel Ruiz going to Brazil because the Brazilian league absolutely dust sweeps for the Russian Prem. Some people were hyped when Oberlin Pineda went to Greece. I mean, Greece cannot compare and cannot compete with the Brazilian clubs. If he was going to some tiny team, then sure, maybe this is not something to be hyped about. But Palmeiras just sold Richard Rios to Benfica for heavy money. It's a very technical league. It's a very physical league. If Marcel Ruiz goes there, and there are reports that he might not be interested, that I think is just crazy. I get that it doesn't have the sex appeal of Europe, but this is an amazing destination. If he cooks for 2 years, he's in Europe by 27, 100% guaranteed. And now is the time because he's 24 years old. He's just coming off a career season with Toluca where he was one of the best midfielders in Liga MX. Some will say he was the best midfielder in Liga MX. He won with Toluca, so there's that whole thing about Mexican players and I guess Mexican ownership where it's like until you prove yourself, until you earn it, they're not going to sell you. Well, he earned it, so let him go. The thing that's crazy about this move is the reported transfer fee of $14 million, which if this is true and Palmeiras are actually offering $14 million Toluca got to take that and run to the bank laughing, because this is a crazy buy for Marcel Ruiz. I'll be honest, I love Marcel Ruiz. He should be starting for Mexico. He's not worth 14 million. I mean, we're talking about one of the biggest sales in Liga MX. Hell, if Toluca received a $7 million offer, I would have said take that. 14, and if we're even having a discussion, then the greed of Mexican clubs is uneclipsed. I was looking at references for Palmeiras, like how much do they usually pay for players, and one of their other CDMs who would be in direct competition with Ruiz, Anibal Moreno, I think he's Uruguayan, they paid $6 million for him from Racing last season. So from $6 million for, I believe he's actually Argentine CDM in Racing, which is a big club in Argentina, to $14 million for Ruiz, this is a huge investment. This is like an eye-popping transfer fee, like when Ricardo Pepi went to Augsburg for 18 mil or whatever it was like, wait, how much money? And there's going to be pressure for Ruiz to perform. So again, if this is a serious thing, if Ruiz has the option to go, freaking go. If Toluca get an offer above 7 mil, absolutely take it. I really am just, honestly, I pray every night for about 15 minutes that this materializes. Even if he goes to Palmeiras and flops, whatever, we found out his level. A move that is way less hype is Brian Gonzalez joining Chivas for another $6 million fee, man. They're Chivas, bro. Like, they're just, I know they only signed in Mexicans, but these are crazy fees. I mean, this guy's one of, like, the last members of that goated Pachuca team. Am I disappointed that he left? Not really, because Gonzalez, he's such a fringe guy in the Selección. Like, again, I don't know if he gets talked about more than Efrain. I feel like Efrain even might be brought up more often than Brian Gonzalez. He is a left back, and the left back situation is completely up for grabs. Like, and nobody really wants it. People are saying Matteo Chavez. I like Matteo Chavez, but if you think Matteo Chavez is the finished product, like, you're a fool. I would have much preferred Brian Gonzalez again, like I do with all Mexican players going to Europe, but the fee was $6 million. Who's paying $6 million for Brian Gonzalez? That's insane. He's very good defensively, but unless you're like a dynamic wing back, somebody like a Huescas or somebody like a Matteo Chavez, who, again, their fees were half of what Brian Gonzalez went to Chivas for, European clubs aren't going to buy you, dude. Like, I'm looking, like, Gonzalez is a very good defender, but in the last 3 seasons in Liga MX, 77 games for Pachuca, he had 3 assists. That's not enough. 3 assists, 1 per season. What European club is going to pay $6 million for an athlete who can defend? They already learned from the Jorge Sanchez flop at Ajax and Porto. They're not making that mistake again. So yeah, man, I feel like he's stuck. Speaking of Matteo Chavez, I do want to talk about this. This happened a long time ago, so I'll keep it quick. $2 million move to Alkmaar at 21 in the Eredivisie. If you are in the Eredivisie at age 21, if you are in the Jupiler Pro League at age 21, regardless of context, I don't care who signed you. I don't care if it was a loan. I don't care if it was 50 mil. It is a W. And honestly, bonus points for going to Alkmaar. Because I'll say it right now, I'm sick and tired of Ajax and Feyenoord being the only clubs in the Eredivisie that buy our players. Ajax and Feyenoord are really freaking good. And truth pill time, maybe the other YouTubers don't want to tell you this, but most CONCACAF prospects are not ready. They are not good enough to go immediately to an Ajax or a Feyenoord. They will be bench warmers. Can we normalize going to Alkmaar or going to Groningen or Heracles or whatever the hell that club is named? Can we make that normal? Because that's really the level of our prospects. I don't want anybody going to Ajax anymore for 8 mil. Like, can we just pause that for 2 years? Go to Alkmaar where there's much less competition and let him cook. And I do expect Matteo Chavez to cook this season. I'm very excited to see what him and Huescas do, on opposite sides. The 2 fullbacks that people are backing the most to start for Mexico the next Mundial. David Muller-Wolf, who was the left back for Alkmaar last season, he just moved to the Prem, y'all. So the starting spot is wide open. I don't know if Matteo Chavez is going to take it. I think he's got one other Dutch guy who's in his late 20s that he's going to be competing with, but there's an opportunity here. This is an amazing landing spot. It's an amazing opportunity for him to improve his skills, potentially get European football, potentially challenge for at least a domestic cup. Absolute 10 out of 10 banger transfer. I wish I could copy and paste this for 50 Mexican players per year. And the last one I'm going to talk about, which is another, I feel nothing burger, but I'll mention him, Emilio Lara to Necaxa on loan. I'm only talking about this because he played for the Selección in friendlies right before the Gold Cup, but otherwise I wouldn't be touching Emilio Lara with a 10-foot pole. I don't really think Lara's gonna improve as a player or ever play for the national team again unless he improves. And is he gonna improve in Liga MX? The answer is no. He's 23 years old. He doesn't have a lot of time left to improve his base fundamental skills. He needs to leave. And we've seen Liga MX can only develop players to a certain level and then they flatline. And I kind of feel like Emilio Lara, who looks like a giraffe sometimes when he's playing footy, is going to flatline. especially at the fullback position. Like, there's no way in hell this guy should be in the top 3 depth chart. Let's move on to the final team here and talk about some transfers from the U.S. men's national team. Let's get the big behemoth out of the way here. Malik Tilman to Bayer Leverkusen for $40 freaking million, which is a club record fee for Leverkusen. Look, man, somebody had to come in and replace Wirtz. And it just so happens to be an American player. A German-American player, to be specific. And before I say anything else, let me just say, this is incredible. What an opportunity. An insane amount of potential to put America on the map. I don't rate Malik Tilman as high as many Americans do. I still think he's a good player, though. I just always thought it was important to take his PSV performances into context. I don't trust you, any of you, if you're an offensive player at a top side in the Eredivisie. Your stats mean nothing to me. And people will say, well, Jack, in the Champions League, I don't care, dude. Did you see how Santi Jimenez looked for Feyenoord in the Champions League? The Dutch tax, the Ajax Feyenoord PSV tax is insane. I don't trust any of it. I just want to see you in a different environment. We finally saw him at the Gold Cup last season, and he looked solid. He wasn't as great as many people said, but he looked solid. He did what he could in a team largely surrounded by bums. Well, he's not going to be surrounded by bums at Leverkusen. Yes, they did lose a lot of their star players, but it's still a good squad. Erik ten Hag is the manager now. I don't really know what that means, but I don't think we know enough to say that that's an L or something. I still expect him to do well, and for me, a successful season at Leverkusen would be like 10 goals, 7 assists. I think if he can get something like that, then he's already validated the transfer fee. And people will say, like, oh, Jack, that doesn't sound enough. I mean, 40 million. I hear you, but if you look at Florian Wirtz and you just look at his statistical output every season for Leverkusen in the Bundesliga, he never had a 2020 season. He never had a 20 goals, 10 assists season. He was always kind of flirting with double digits in both categories. And I think if Malik Tilman can do that with Leverkusen losing the talent that they have, how can that not be a success? Another big money move for the United States is Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis to my Atletico Madrid for $25 million. And I will poo-poo on everyone's parade right now. I am extremely skeptical about how the hell this is going to work. Because I see everybody like, oh, Cardoso's being brought in to replace DePaul. Is he? Because DePaul and Johnny Cardoso are not the same midfielder. Johnny Cardoso is a 6. Rodrigo DePaul is an 8. Johnny Cardoso is much similar to Barrios than he is to DePaul. And Barrios, if we look at who had a better individual season last year, I would say it was Barrios. If we look at the stats and what the numbers are for both players, Barrios in defensive categories is better than Johnny Cardoso. Now, Barrios is a beast. I'm not saying Cardoso sucks. I'm just saying, what the hell does the midfield look like? Are we going to start Barrios, Cardoso, and Alex Baena? I don't know what the midfield looks like. And I think Simeone's got to figure this out. And at Atleti, we bought like 6 players this window. There's a lot of toys in the toy box, which can be a good and a bad thing. There's going to be a strong, hard adjustment period here for Cardoso. He's also not playing in Betis anymore, where they can kind of just high press at home and sit back at away every single freaking game. Atleti are going to be having to break down low blocks quite often. And can Cardoso do that? I don't know. At least with the United States, we haven't really seen him demonstrate that ability. With Real Betis, I think he had a couple assists last season. I will say that he gets up for the Gigante matches. He gets up for the big games, but what about against Espanyol? What about against Getafe, who beat Atleti last season? What about newly promoted teams like Elche or Levante? This is a huge season for Cardoso because I think everybody is assuming it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. I'm not quite there. I think it's 50-50 whether this is a great or rough season. Let's move it on to Tim Weah, who signed to Marseille on loan with an obligation to buy. It's the same club as his dad. They did a cool magazine, homage to George Weah when he signed for the club is pretty sick. Look, man, Marseille have a very stacked squad, and if they don't at least compete and push PSG this season, I think it's a huge L. I think it's a decent place for Weah to be. I'll be honest, I don't think it's a huge dub. I don't think it's a huge L. I think it's kind of like a lateral move. Similar to Cardoso, I'm really curious how this works out, right? Because if he's being brought in to be a right winger, then he's not displacing Mason Greenwood. There's no way. If he's being brought in as a right back, is he going to take the starting spot from Amir Murillo? I don't know. That's a pretty tough positional battle. And a CONCACAF battle, which I don't want to see. I don't want CONCACAF friendly fire here. I also think Murillo's better. So I don't really know what's about to happen here. I don't watch the French league. You don't watch the French league. Everything that we would have about this discussion would be related to fault mob. And I don't want to do that. If he plays, awesome. If he doesn't, then this was a bad decision. I think on the bright side, Marseille, the second best team in France, and they score a lot of goals. There will be a lot of chances. Tim Weah, especially if he's going to be still playing more as a winger, I expect him to have at least some opportunities. Now, is he going to score? Is he going to get assists? Well, the answer's been no for the vast majority of his career, but last season he did actually have a career year in terms of output. Maybe he could do that again. I'm not sure. I wouldn't get too excited about this move. I think it's okay. Now, a move that I think is a bit more hype for the United States is Damian Downs to Southampton. 21 years old, 10 goals, 3 assists for Kone in the Bundesliga 2 last season. I like it. Now, Southampton were complete ass in the Prem last year, but their strikers were especially ass. Cameron Archer and Adam Armstrong will be Downs' main competition at the night. Last season, in 55 combined games, they scored 4 goals. That is so bad. Cameron Archer, I don't know how anybody is still paying for this man as a footballer. He's not good. English tax, baby. It's an expensive thing to pay. So there's an opportunity for Downs. And I expect him to get moderate play time. If anything happens to Cameron Archer, or if he's like 8 games into the season and doesn't have a goal again in the championship, then I think Damian's going to get a shot. Now, the striker position is not a huge area of need for the U.S. men's national team, but you can never have enough 9s. I don't care if you're Brazil, Argentina, you can never have enough goal scorers in the pool. So if Downs is cooking the championship, he's got great output, that's a win, man. I'll check Transfermarkt to see if I'm missing any other American transfers. These will just be thoughts off the dome. I'm not going to go too in-depth on anything. Matt Turner to Olympic Lyon. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I probably should have talked about that. I think it's cool if he plays. Goalkeepers for the United States need to play. If he ain't playing, it's not a great move. Patrick Achimong to Derby County for $7 million. I already made a video about this. I mean, I don't watch Achimong in MLS, but I watched him at the Gold Cup, and fundamentally, he has some serious weaknesses. He is a physical beast, but a lot of players in the championship are physical beasts, so I think that his main advantage is going to be kind of negated by his opposition. I think that's a scary investment from Derby County, but, you know, I wish him the best. I guess there's a couple other moves I could mention. I mean, Jonathan Gomez going to La Liga 2 on a loan. I don't really care to talk about that. Richie Ledesma going to Chivas on a free, 24 years old. I've never really bought into that hype whatsoever. Yeah, I think I feel pretty comfortable ending the video there, guys. Like I said, I'll be making a tier list, kind of grading every single nation's transfer window overall, so hit subscribe for that. I hope you guys enjoyed. I asked you guys to put your biggest transfer, the one that you're most excited about, down below in the comments. It'd be unfair if I didn't answer this myself. I'm going to say that the transfer I would be most excited about if it happened was Marcel Ruiz to Palmeiras. Since that technically hasn't happened yet, the move that I love the most, I feel like I can't pick a Mexican player. You guys are just going to say I'm crazy biased. I'm very excited for Malik Tilman to Bayer Leverkusen. I think if you compare that versus Jonathan David, you can make an argument for both ways which one is going to be more hype. I think both of them are so important for CONCACAF as a footballing region. Although it will be so dope to see a Canadian leading the line for Juventus, like, what year are we in? Unfathomable 10 years ago. So maybe for the hype, it is Jonathan David. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe for more CONCACAF content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.